So, it's movie reviewing time again.
Yep, this is a good one. This is The Hand from 1981. And you know who's this? You know who's in this one?
Michael fucking Caine.
Michael fucking Caine.
That's who.
That's right.
With his fucking Willy Wonka hair.
Yeah, he's part of Willy Wonka hair. I don't think he's part of the Krustle Sphere, but...
I thought everyone was part of the Krustle Sphere.
I don't know.
You were going back on your Krustle theology.
I don't know if there's
Splitter.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a Krustle connection other than just me as an observer, observing both Michael Caine
probably find
and
something.
the Krustle. I like them both, so... I don't think I can connect someone to the Krustle Sphere just because
They had to have been in a movie together.
They had to have been in a movie together. Right.
Or something.
Exactly.
But this movie, I have to say, okay, this movie kind of universally reviled when it came out. But I did too. And I saw it a lot. It was on HBO or Cinemax or something like that, a shit ton back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I mean, because, I was born in 72, so I was about 10 years old in 1982. And I had a sort of morbid fascination / terror of beheading and other types of dismemberment.
Right.
So if anything was in a movie that had that part with The Omen where David Warner gets his head chopped off with a pane of glass, that fucking freaked me out. And this movie, the scene where Michael Caine gets his hand cut off, freaked me the fuck out. And to this day, I cannot hang my arm out of a car window for this very reason because of this movie.
And that scene, it has just an unreasonable amount of blood everywhere. It looks like a giallo film, and it turns out, yes, that was done by an Italian special effects guys who worked on a lot of giallo movies.
Yeah, because they just love the blood spray.
This came out the same year that The Shining came out. Oliver Stone was...
Well, Shining came out in 80, right? Or late 1980.
It was around the same time.
But around the same time.
Oliver Stone was...
this is Oliver Stone's second movie. His first for a major studio. His first one was an independent movie.
Oliver Stone was kind of depressed that this movie got its ass kicked, especially up against, The Shining. I like them both, but The Shining is definitely a masterpiece.
Well, The Shining is clearly one of the...
If you're going to get your ass whipped, you better get your ass whipped by The Shining.
Yeah, I would not mind having my ass whipped by The Shining.
No shame in that one. But the stories were kind of similar. In terms of, The Shining was about a writer who couldn't write, and The Hand is about a cartoonist who can't draw because he lost his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And he just goes insane. He becomes a villain. And if you think Michael Caine comes off as a dick in The Island or something like this is Michael Caine at his dickest of dick.
This is uber dick.
This is dicktastic. Which, evidently Michael Caine in real life is not a dick. And according to Oliver Stone, Michael Caine's like a real gentleman to work with. He's extremely...
Really? Because he pretty much always plays a total dick whistle in every single movie he's in. Except for maybe he's nice as Alfred, in the Batman movies.
He's the best Alfred of all time.
He really is.
No, evidently he's very cool on set, and he's very professional. And he said that working himself up into these rages for this movie said it really took a toll on him. Said it
you can
kind
kind of see that.
Yeah. And he does. He
gets really, really mad in this movie.
Yeah, he looks like a lunatic.
Yeah.
All right? And
the hair doesn't help.
Yeah. That Brillo pad hair. And I don't know. What's a good way to talk about this movie?
Well, okay. The movie is actually Oliver Stone wrote the screenplay. Like I said, this was his first movie for a major studio. He had done one previously. I think it was called Seizure or Seizures. And it was a similar theme of an artist going crazy, and there's ambiguity over whether the shit is really happening or if it's all in their head or something like that, which is also present in The Hand. Now, this is not an original screenplay. It was based on a novel
called The Lizard's Tale
by Mark Brandel. And there's actually some foreshadowing at the beginning of the movie where Michael Caine's daughter, Lizzie, who incidentally is the little girl that played little Christina in Mommy Dearest.
And she also played Annie.
Did she?
Yeah, she played Annie. That's what Oliver said.
Really?
Yeah, that she was.
She played Annie in the movie?
I think it was just a play.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a different girl, but she was definitely in Mommy Dearest, as little Christina. But yeah, there's a part at the beginning of the movie where the cat has eaten a very large lizard. It's
just a regular sized lizard.
Yeah, okay. And the cat was eating it, and then the tail was detached.
Yeah, sitting there squirming.
And it was squirming there, and it was sitting there squirming, and the little kid was poking at it with a stick, and the tail seemed to know
when the stick was coming.
And she's like, "How does that happen, Daddy?" And he's like, it doesn't know, honey. It's and I was like, "Ooh, foreshadowing."
Yeah.
That's foreshadowing,
weird.
So yeah.
This is a very unsettling movie.
It is. And like I said...
Very atmospheric, but it delivers. It shows stuff, too.
It's weird, and it surprised me that it got, like, a lot of shitty reviews. Like, there was one review from the time that was, like, really glowing that I found on Rotten Tomatoes. But in general, I feel like it was kind of really poorly reviewed. And I'm not really sure why, because I loved the shit out of this movie. I mean, it freaked me out a lot when I was a kid. Because, like I said, dismemberment. Just the thought of losing a body part... And then just, like, thinking of it, just, like, laying there in a field, like, with bugs crawling all over and shit like that, it, like, wigged me out.
The tale's also pretty deep. There's a lot of analogies, a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of psychology going on.
Yeah.
And really what it's about an older guy who's, like, kind of like from the World War II generation. He's a real control freak. And he's married this much younger woman who's from the 70s generation. Okay? And there's a big culture clash between the two. He's a control freak, and she's kind of one of these new agey, touchy-feely, she's going to be a vegan, And he loses his... First of all, they don't have a good marriage to begin with. She's trying to split from him.
Yeah, at the beginning, she clearly wants to leave, and he does not want her to.
They get into an argument in a car, and basically she accidentally causes a traffic situation in which he loses his hand.
Yeah.
And for a bit, he uses that sympathy to keep control over her.
Yeah.
But
to get her to stay.
To get her to stay. But he finally gets a prosthetic hand, and he tries to go back to work. But it turns out that there's nothing he can do. He's slowly being replaced by softer men in society. His wife is running off with the yoga instructor who's like this little skinny, new agey type guy who's all sensitive and listens to her and shit like that. Shit that a macho man is not supposed to do. And then he's getting...
Fuck listening.
Yeah, fuck listening. And then he's getting replaced at his job with the comic strip that he writes. And he writes Mandro. And Mandro is basically Conan.
Pretty much, yeah. And also the guy that drew the Mandro strips for the movie actually did work on Conan, too, for like drawing a Conan
and
strip.
Oliver Stone at this time had written a script for Conan the Barbarian. But actually it went to John Milius. I think his first name is John, right?
Yeah,
or is it Milius? So. To write Conan, and that's Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan. So Oliver Stone almost directed that Conan.
Yeah.
But somebody else got it. So there's kind of like a Conan sphere going on here. And there's the reason being is because they liked Conan. Conan was a primal kind of a guy. The author of Conan was a young guy who was big into macho virtues. But when his mom died, he killed himself. And really what Stone is talking about is that, and I saw this a lot, I'm in my late 40s now, and the guys that were, like of my dad's generation, in the World War II generation, like my grandfather's generation, these guys kind of had a different way about themselves. They were really uptight, straight-laced, kind of control freaks. And they were kind of afraid of showing any kind of softer sides to themselves. They consider that to be weakness,
or any kind of self-reflection. They wouldn't reflect on
They wouldn't look into themselves. And and Michael Caine's character in this movie is saying a bunch of stuff that basically points to that as his problem. So he has to go back to work, and they've hired a young guy to draw the comic strip for him because he can no longer draw. And this guy also wanted to bring Mandro up to date. So what does he do? He puts in a bunch of new age ideas like reincarnation and Mandro using introspection and reflection. This sends, I think what's Michael Caine's character's name? John Lansdale. Yeah. This sends John Lansdale, that's Caine's character, sends him over the edge. You know what I mean? And he basically quits. I don't want to ruin too much about that. He quits and he takes up a job teaching over in California.
Yeah, way across the country. Because it starts in New York. Well, it starts in Vermont, and then the wife still wants to live in New York, and that's one of the sticking points.
Sticking points. She wants to live in New York. He wants to live out in California. They're very much opposites. He's like an outdoorsy guy. He likes to chop wood. He likes to live in cabins. All right. She's a big city girl. She wants to live in, old New York from the 80s in lofts and hang out with new age people.
Really, this whole movie, I mean, it's a horror movie, sort of.
Yeah.
But it's also kind of like a psychological thriller, family drama type of thing.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where the whole thing, one, it's metaphorical. Two, it's left ambiguous
as to what's happening.
As to whether it's like a horror movie or not, really. Right. Because, I mean, I tend to think that, you know, can I spoil it?
Yeah, well, sure, you can. Yeah.
Because, you know, I tend to think that him seeing the hand killing people, because that's what happens. He loses his hand in an accident. They don't find it. He has to get a prosthetic. And so he begins to perceive that his hand is crawling around on its own and doing things of its own volition. Yeah. But really, I think the point of the movie is that it's him doing them. He's just trying to offload the responsibility
onto an outside force
because he is not equipped to consider his own feelings or consider his own rage, why he's so angry. He puts everything outward. He blames everyone else for his problems, and that metaphorically takes the form of this hand that's going around killing people that he doesn't like or that do things to piss him off.
Yeah, you're basically, you're not sure whether or not this guy's blacking out and strangling and killing people who are kind of like the focus of his rage, or is there this disembodied hand going out and killing people? Or is this hand just a representation of like psychic will going out and killing people for it? And they basically, in the end, they kind of tell you, no, he's actually doing this. But then they leave a bunch of, like, some plausible deniability. There's a scene where he is being analyzed by a doctor who's doing brainwave scans on him. And his hand comes out and kills that woman. Yeah. While he's strapped to a chair. Now, he's not totally free when it happens, but you're not really sure whether or not you can trust
But it's still
Michael
possible.
Caine. Michael Caine is a reliable observer in this tale. Yeah. You know, did he imagine that the hand killed her, or did he actually get loose and kill her? Yeah. You're not really sure.
It could be interpreted either way.
That's right. And Oliver Stone said that that's the way he wanted it. He wanted it to be kind of ambiguous. Yeah. Was he doing the murder himself, or was that hand a psychic embodiment of his id? So in other words, kind of like telekinesis or power of the dark side of the force, or poltergeist, basically, you know, like a poltergeist type event. It leaves it up to you, depending on whatever interpretation you want to go, that you want to go with, you know?
Yeah. Because, I mean, essentially, this movie, and I'm going to say, too, there have been a couple other movies about kind of rogue body parts of this type, obviously. One of my favorite ones is actually a silent movie from the 1920s called The Hands of Orlac. And if you go to my blog, which is goddessofhellfire.com, and search for Hands of Orlac, I wrote like a really big, long breakdown of it. But a similar thing happens in that movie. There's like a pianist. So his livelihood is his hands. He's in a train accident. Both his hands are cut off. And then he gets what he thinks are a murderer's hands stitched onto his body. Right. And he begins to perceive that they are acting of their own volition, that they are killing people. He would never do such a thing, blah, blah, blah. So it's a similar kind of theme here. It's like Michael Caine, even from the beginning of the movie, is a raging dickwad.
Yeah, and he gets worse.
And he gets, like, as bad as he is at the beginning, he's very dismissive of his wife. He's just, like, constantly, like, belittling, like, what she wants to do. And she clearly wants to leave, but he doesn't want her to. Right. Not because it doesn't really seem, he doesn't want her to, you know, just, it's not because he loves her so much and stuff like that. It's just he wants control. He wants control over her. He wants control over the daughter. And he's like, you know, no one leaves me because I'm the man. I'm the boss. He's kind of like that. So he won't let her go. The main fight that kind of causes his hand to get cut off is her just saying, well, I'm just going to go anyway. Right. Which, you know, if she wants to go, he should have just said, okay, but he doesn't want to do that. He gets all upset about it and, you know, they end up getting in an accident. So the whole thing about Michael Caine's kind of descent into madness is, you know, the reason that it's a hand, it's loss of control. His hand, he's a cartoonist, so that's his livelihood. And there are scenes in it where, like, he's at dinner with his female editor, and she starts, like, cutting his meat in the restaurant, like, cutting up his meat.
Cutting his food,
and feeding him and stuff like that without asking him. And you can see on his face this kind of, like, shame that he has lost all control that he thought he possessed. And the hand, obviously, is a penis metaphor, like a manhood metaphor, too. And he even specifically says that during one of his
Now, there's a really cool scene. He's talking to his buddy in a bar, And basically he tells his buddy that he thinks that he's blacking out because he hooked up with this chick this one night. One of his students had sex with her and sometime he looked through her notebook and he found a picture of her, a really cool picture of her kind of like kneeling down inside of his hand, and the quality of the artwork was good. It was like he said that's the way he used to draw with his right hand.
Right.
How did he do that? And his buddy said, well, damn, you either blacked out and your subconscious did that with your left hand, you know what I mean? Or you somehow did it with micro impulses through your prosthetic hand. Well, he says, and he says, if I was you, I'd be scared. Blacking out's dangerous. And he goes, could you rape somebody? He says, oh, you could kill somebody.
Yeah.
And the Michael Caine's John character, he takes the whole thing as a negative because he responds to everything negatively. But Jenny and I started analyzing it. Really what I think the hand or the subconscious was trying to tell him was that if he wanted to, he could draw just as well as he used to, either with his left hand or the prosthetic hand.
Yeah.
And the hand, the picture was symbolic. The hand, that's his id or his power, his phallic symbol, or, a lot of his negative anger and his force kind of possessing that woman. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That was all, and it was all drawn beautifully. So he could have what he wanted. It was in his subconscious.
Yeah.
If he knew how to access it. But instead he chose the dark side. He slipped more towards the dark side.
He chose
anger and violence.
And like I said, this is kind of like, when he's in, when he's in the office with the new cartoonist that's going to be redrawing his strip, Mandro. And, the new artist has kind of changed it up a little bit, made it a little more modern, more new agey, stuff like that. More introspective, has made the character more introspective.
Yeah.
So Michael Caine gets very, very angry at this and says specifically, Mandro doesn't think. He just does what he wants.
Yeah, he knows what he wants and he just does it.
And he just does it. He doesn't think about it. He's not introspective at all.
And the new guy was like, well, man, if we can give another dimension to this character, it'll sell as good as Pogo. And he goes, Pogo, this isn't Pogo. And he goes, but have you seen sales on Pogo?
Yeah.
It's making it's making a fuck ton of money.
Yeah.
He walked away from all that.
Yeah.
He says, no, I can't, if it's not his way, if it's not my way, it's the highway.
It's the highway, right.
He acted irrationally and walked out.
Yeah, because he was
so he could not collaborate. He could not collaborate.
Well, because he was so uptight and he couldn't adapt.
Couldn't collaborate.
And this is, like you said, that was a very pivotal scene. Also, the scene where he finds the beautiful drawing was also very pivotal because, like you said, I think that was his subconscious as a last-ditch effort trying to say to him, look, if you looked inside yourself, if you practice, you could do it. You could do it with your left hand.
Right, yeah.
Or you could do it with your prosthetic or something, because you can reteach yourself to draw with your other hand. Of course you can.
Yeah.
You just have to put the effort in. But he was not willing to do that. So that was like the tragedy. That was his last-ditch effort, his last chance, and he pissed it away.
Yeah, and it's kind of, the whole thing's kind of an analogy for kind of guys from the older generation. You always run into it. As guys get older, some of them fail to adapt. They can't learn new tricks. They want it the way it used to be, and now it's no longer viable. The people don't want that anymore. That doesn't sell well in the market. So really the whole movie, in a way, is a warning to men. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all men should see this and analyze it of how not to be as a man.
It's an indictment of what they would nowadays call toxic masculinity.
Yeah, and I don't really believe in that kind of airy-fairy bullshit, but I'd have to agree with you. Yeah, that is toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And not all men are guilty of it, but that is a good example of it.
Yeah.
You see, what happens nowadays is you have people... You have certain people saying any kind of masculinity is toxic. And that's not true.
No.
There is a positive masculinity. There's a positive strength, too. This is a very negative strength. And if you haven't seen this flick, go check this out. Yeah. And we're really just kind of scratching the surface of the analysis. This is analysis/tease and kind of tribute to this movie. Because this movie actually was kind of a big part of my childhood. I saw it so many times as a kid.
I know, me too, right?
And I didn't really catch all the angles because I wasn't really old enough. Having gone back and see it now, I've watched it twice, and then once with Oliver Stone, and then the third time with Oliver Stone's commentary.
Yeah, he watched the commentary.
And he confirmed some of the suspicions I thought he was trying to tell me.
Yeah.
Because he said that he had to remove, he didn't have total control over this flick.
Yeah,
he had to remove. Movie, really. He had to remove a couple of scenes, and he had to reshoot some stuff. And he thought the movie was a failure. He liked the movie, but he thought it failed to get across the message that he wanted to get across. And it was what I suspected. He wanted it to get more across the ambiguity of, was that hand really there or not? Right. Was that some kind of a psychic force killing people? And the way it looks, the way that final scene is shot, it looks too much like, no, it was him doing it. Stone wanted it to be about 50-50 that, no, it could have been a psychic force that did that.
But yeah, like I said, the whole point of Michael Caine's character and the whole kind of point that Oliver Stone is making in this movie, and maybe it was made in the book too, I'm not really sure. Not sure how similar the book is to the screenplay.
He said he lifted some of the dialogue. He thought the dialogue was good in the book, and he included the best dialogue from the book in this movie. Stone was very satisfied with the dialogue in the movie. And I'd have to agree.
Yeah, I liked it too.
And the acting is fantastic.
It is. It's very realistic.
Yeah, and Caine, I mean, he looks at shit in this one. You know how I said Caine, most of Caine's acting is just looking at shit?
He said it's just looking at shit.
This dude just looks at shit.
He just looks at shit. He looks at a lot of shit.
He looks at shit, and you know if he's scared of it or you know he's furious. And I'll tell you, this guy was, as a kid, one of the first actors that scared the shit out of me. And he wasn't in a mask or a costume. Just me looking at Michael Caine's face as he became evil, he became a monster to me as a kid. It's just like, God damn, that dude fucking scary looking. Yeah.
Yeah, because he looked very frightening when he gets his dander all up. Like
and there's no mask or anything. No. He just, at the end, he just looks so fucking evil. He looks like a Sith Lord, and there's kind of the same story arc of of a Sith Lord, Anakin Skywalker and all that. Yeah. And that's why I was talking about the psychic force, that he's using is almost like the dark side. They're leaving it ambiguous. It's awesome. I think in a way it's a minor masterpiece, not as good as The Shining, but
obviously nothing's as good as The Shining.
But you know what? Dollar for dollar, it can hold its own against Shining.
Yeah, like I said, I was always kind of confused about, why it didn't get good reviews and stuff like that. But like I said, the whole point that Oliver Stone was making in this movie was that Michael Caine's character became evil because he refused to look inside himself and see why he was so angry. All of his anger was focused outward.
Yeah.
And the reason he wouldn't look inward is because he was afraid.
Yeah.
And that fear he perceived as a weakness, so he had to push it down, which made him angrier. Yeah. And it was just this fed into this loop, and he just got ragier and ragier, and then he just started killing people.
It kind of reminds me of like basic training and infantry AIT. It was always, at the beginning of AIT, it's always the guys who you think are the toughest were some of the first to crack. And that was because in those days, when most of these really young, tough guys don't know what it's like to be really tired or really exhausted or to feel really weak, because you're just so exhausted. And then their feelings of weakness get them to give up. They're like, oh, fuck it, I'm out of here. I can't take this. I can't lower myself to this. And, and it's because most of the time, through basic training and advanced individual training for like infantry, it's guys trying to pull themselves through the crucible. So they're not doing it on their own. They're kind of using teamwork to survive. And he wasn't the kind of guy that, this character from Out of the Hand is not the kind of guy to use teamwork.
No, he told you how he wanted to.
Right. And that was, so it's failure to adapt. And that's what I saw.
Failure to adapt, failure to collaborate.
Exactly.
Failure to listen to anyone else's ideas.
And failure to understand your own weaknesses and to be one with them.
That was the big one.
Because when you understand your weaknesses, you can achieve endurance. It's endurance that wins, not strength. Good example. Look at Frank Castle from The Punisher. Not only could he kill enemies, you could beat him to death, basically. And he would just escape into a realm of of visions of him making out with his wife. He could endure tremendous punishment. You know what I mean?
Which that's a good thing to be able to, probably even more than be able to beat up a motherfucker. It's better to be able to get beat up and endure it.
And endure it and survive it and come back. And
that's kind of what Daredevil's kind of strength. Like he can kick people's asses too, but he can get his ass kicked and still keep going. So I think that's kind of an underrated skill. From man to man, from me, Tom, to you guys listening, I'm ex-Army. What really makes a man is not the ability to dish it out, but the ability to take it.
because it's endurance that wins, you know?
Yeah.
Like the United States won its Revolutionary War against England. We didn't win really any of the big battles, just that we just kept enduring. They gave up.
Yeah.
So that's how that was won.
We just wore them out.
Well, Michael Caine's character did not have endurance.
Yeah, like I said, he was a lot of anger, but he unyielding. And everything was someone else's
fault. Right.
Like I said, he couldn't.
He never admitted any of his own shortfalls.
No.
And never could roll with his own weaknesses and learn how to get around them.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, here's the thing. Like, there's a scene, like, that's kind of early, so maybe it's like a third of the way into the movie or something like that, where he comes home early, like, after he's had a little rage fit at one of the meetings because, you know, his strip's getting taken over. And his wife is there with the yoga instructor. They're not fucking or anything like that, but her and the yoga instructor are like counseling, because I guess he's counseling her. Yeah. So she's talking about her feelings, and there's a scene where Michael Caine like looks into the room, and she turns around and looks at him, and she's crying, and her face with the tears keeps coming back to him.
Yeah.
Now, had he taken that and thought to himself, hey, maybe I've been a douche. Maybe I should listen to her feelings. Maybe I should let her do what she wants to do. Maybe she doesn't want to be with me. Or maybe, you know, maybe this guy has something to offer that I don't, or something like that. But the fact that he couldn't do that, he just got mad. He got mad at her. He got mad at the yoga instructor, instead of thinking that maybe it was a shortcoming of his that had driven her away. Right. And it was kind of the same thing with the drawing. And like I said, I think that was that was his brain's last attempt at trying to get through to him that if he didn't blame other people, if he got his anger under control, he could adapt he could learn to draw with his left hand, for example. You know, he could adapt to a new situation, but he would not do that. And that was his downfall.
The moral of the story is be well-rounded.
Right.
Yeah. Be well-rounded. Understand your own shortcomings, and don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Be
innovative. Don't be stuck in your way.
Yeah. Try new shit.
Don't be fucking uptight. That's what.
Take that stick out of your ass for crying out loud. Take the stick out of you.
Don't try to live up to shit that you can't live up to.
But the cool thing, I mean, okay, and kind of in closing, but like the cool thing about this movie, like I saw it a lot when I was a kid and it scared me. And, you know, we recently saw it again and we just got it on Blu-ray and stuff like that. And I think I like it even more now. Yeah. Now, it has that very ponderous, slow pace that a lot of horror movies back then had.
Yeah.
But I like that better. It's honestly, it's kind of a horror movie, but it's kind of more like a psychological study, really, with just kind of some horror elements.
I see it also as kind of like something in the same vein as Conan. Conan was a guy who survived the Crucible and came out a fantastic, well-rounded warrior for his time. This is a guy that could not survive the Crucible, became a murderer, and destroyed himself.
Yeah. And really, I mean, how many movies are you going to see with Michael Caine with blood spraying out of a stump on the side of the road and just screaming his fucking head off? Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Blood everywhere.
And he talked shit, too. Dude could talk shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was super scary.
What's wrong with our marriage? Is he fucking you? Are you fucking? That's funny. Okay. Just go see the flick if you haven't seen it. Go.
Yeah, it's very good. And like I said...
Actually, I think you can see it either. Sometimes it comes and goes. It comes and goes on Netflix, and I think you can rent it on YouTube.
I think we rented it on YouTube a few years ago.
I had to buy it for my DVD collection.
Yeah.
They don't have this on Blu-ray as far as I can tell.
Because this was one of the formative movies of my childhood. One of the formative horror movies. It was this one, The Shining, Time After Time, which, like I said, we got to do one on that. Yeah. My Bloody Valentine, for some reason, that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
Terror Train, yeah. That's the Canadian slasher.
I like that movie.
Funhouse.
Yeah, that's Toby Hooper.
In the Funhouse. Remember that guy?
That guy freaked me out at the beginning of
Nighttime.
He had the best voice.
In the Funhouse.
Because he was like creepy, but he was also sounded like bored.
Going slow.
And there was something really eerie about that. I'm not sure why. Because sometimes people's voices in movies freak me out.
Yeah.
Like, I was always freaked out by Danny's going red. Not so much him just going rad, ram, but when he goes rad, when it was like down here and then it went way up a notch and I was like, oh no. That for some reason that scares me a lot. And funnily enough, and this actually kind of has a link back to the hand, because the guy that plays the younger cartoonist, Charles Fleischer, I think his name is, was the same guy that did the voice for Roger Rabbit in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And there is a scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit where you find out, spoiler alert, that Judge Doom is a toon. Yeah. And you thought he was a human this whole time. And so he's talking normally and then his voice goes, act like this! And it's like, that freaked me the fuck out.
One of the things about this movie that I guess I didn't realize why I liked it, but it always kind of hit a resonant tone with me, is that when Michael Caine's character is up in the mountains of the cabin, for some reason it gave me a feeling of like, you know what I mean, like a certain amount of connection to those scenes. Yeah. Turns out it was Big Bear Lake, which, you know, my family used to take me up there all the time.
Yeah, so you were like, I thought it looked familiar.
I thought that looked familiar. California.
But yeah, anyway, so if you haven't seen it, like I said, if you like Oliver Stone's other movies, this is kind of his first major studio one, and you can kind of see like a lot of his tropes, you can see his talent and stuff like that. Like I said, very poorly reviewed even now, but there's just something I like.
Some of the younger guys seem to like it.
Yeah, there's just something I really like about it. It's got like a really creepy kind of vibe, and like Michael Caine, it's like some of the scenes are like, are like really overwrought and stuff.
He carries the flick.
But he's very scary.
Yeah, and the woman who plays his wife is excellent too. It's good acting, all of it. Yeah, there isn't anybody that sucks in it.
No, there's not.
Yeah, they're good. It's a good movie.
Yeah. But yeah, I like it a lot. So, you know, we recommend it.
Yep.
So tell us what you think of it down in the comment section. And we will be back with another movie review sometime or another. And our regular episode will be up on Tuesday. So we will see you later. Bye.